On the Melancholy of Tailors by Charles Lamb. 1814, text of 1818. Sedit turnumque sedibit in Felix Theseus, Virgil. That there is a professional melancholy, if I may so express myself, incident to the occupation of a tailor, is a fact which I think very few will venture to dispute. I may safely appeal to my readers, whether they ever knew one of that faculty that was not of a temperament, to say the least, far removed from mercurial or jovial. Observe the suspicious gravity of their gait. The peacock is not more tender, from a consciousness of his peculiar infirmity, than a gentleman of this profession is of being known by the same infallible testimonies of his occupation. Walk, that I may know thee. Do you ever see him go whistling along the footpath like a carman, or brush through a crowd like a baker, or go smiling to himself like a lover? Is he forward to thrust into mobs, or to make one at the ballad singer's audiences? Does he not rather slink by assemblies and meetings of the people, as one that wisely declines popular observation? How extremely rare is a noisy tailor, a mirthful and obstreperous tailor. At my nativity, says Sir Thomas Browne, my ascendant was the earthly sign of Scorpius. I was born in the planetary hour of Saturn, and I think I have a piece of that PG 201 leaden planet in me. One would think that he were anatomizing a tailor. Save that to the latter's occupation, methinks, a woolen planet would seem more consonant, and that he should be born when the sun was in Aries. He goes on, I am no way facetious, nor disposed for the mirth and galliardize of company. How true a type of the whole trade, eminently economical of his words, you shall seldom hear a jest come from one of them. He sometimes furnishes subject for a repartee, but rarely, I think, contributes one or propria. Drink itself does not seem to elevate him, or at least to call out of him, any of the external indications of vanity. I cannot say that it never causes his pride to swell, but it never breaks out. I am even fearful that it may swell and rankle to an alarming degree inwardly. For pride is near of kin to melancholy, a hurtful obstruction from the ordinary outlets of vanity being shut. It is this stoppage which engenders proud humors. Therefore a tailor may be proud. I think he is never vain. The display of his gaudy patterns in that book of his which emulates the rainbow never raises any inflations of that emotion in him, corresponding to what the wigmaker, for instance, evinces, when he expatiates on a curl or a bit of hair. He spreads them forth with a sullen incapacity for pleasure, a real or affected indifference to grandeur. Cloth of gold neither seems to elate, nor cloth of fries to depress him, according to the beautiful motto which formed the modest impress of the shield worn by Charles Brandon at his marriage with the king's sister. Nay, I doubt whether he would discover any vainglorious complacence in his colors, though Iris herself dipped the woof. In further corroboration of this argument, whoever saw the wedding of a tailor announced in the newspapers, or the birth of his eldest son? When was a tailor known to give a dance, or to be himself a good dancer, or to perform exquisitely on the tight rope, or to shine in any such light and airy pastimes? To sing or play on the violin? Do they much care for public rejoicings, lightings up, ringing of bells, firing of cannons, and sea? Valiant I know they can be, but I appeal to those who were witnesses to the exploits of Eliot's famous troop, whether in their fiercest charges they betrayed anything of that thoughtless oblivion of death with which a Frenchman jigs PG 202 into battle, or whether they did not show more of the melancholy valor of the Spaniard, upon whom they charged, that deliberate courage which contemplation and sedentary habits breathe. Are they often great newsmongers? I have known some few among them arrive at the dignity of speculative politicians, but that light and cheerful everyday interest in the affairs and goings-on of the world, which makes the barber 33 such delightful company, I think is rarely observable in them. This characteristic pensiveness in them being so notorious, I wonder none of those writers, who have expressly treated of melancholy, should have mentioned it. Burton, whose book is an excellent abstract of all the authors in that kind who preceded him, and who treats of every species of this malady, from the hypochondriacal or windy to the heroical or love melancholy, has strangely omitted it. Shakespeare himself has overlooked it. I have neither the scholar's melancholy, Seth Jacks, which is emulation, nor the courtier's, which is proud, nor the soldier's, which is politic, nor the lover's, which is all these. And then, when you might expect him to have brought in, nor the tailor's, which is so and so, he comes to an end of his enumeration and falls to a defining of his own melancholy. Milton likewise has omitted it, where he had so fair an opportunity of bringing it in his Penseroso. But the partial omissions of historians proving nothing against the existence of any well-attested fact, I shall proceed and endeavor to ascertain the causes why this pensive turn should be so predominant in people of this profession above all others. Page 203. And first, may it not be that the custom of wearing apparel being derived to us from the fall, and one of the most mortifying products of that unhappy event, a certain seriousness, to say no more of it, may in the order of things have been intended to be impressed upon the minds of that race of men to whom in all ages the care of contriving the human apparel has been entrusted, to keep up the memory of the first institution of clothes, and serve as a standing remonstrance against those vanities which the absurd conversion of a memorial of our shame into an ornament of our persons was destined to produce. Correspondent in some sort to this, it may be remarked that the tailor sitting over a cave or hollow place, in the cabalistic language of his order, is said to have certain melancholy regions always open under his feet. But waiving further inquiry into final causes, where the best of us can only wander in the dark, let us try to discover the efficient causes of this melancholy. I think, then, that they may be reduced to two, omitting some subordinate ones, viz. First, his sedentary habits. In Dr. Norris's famous narrative of the frenzy of Mr. John Dennis, the patient being questioned as to the occasion of the swelling in his legs, replies that it came by criticism, to which the learned doctor, seeming to demur, as to a distemper which he had never read of, Dennis, who appears not to have been mad upon all subjects, rejoins with some warmth that it was no distemper but a noble art, that he had sat 14 hours a day at it, and that the other was a pretty doctor not to know that there was a communication between the brain and the legs. When we consider that this sitting for 14 hours continuously, which the critic probably practiced only while he was writing his remarks, is no more than what the tailor, in the ordinary pursuance of his art, submits to daily, Sundays excepted throughout the year, shall we wonder to find the brain affected, and in a manner overclouded from that indissoluble sympathy between the noble and less noble parts of the body, which Dennis hints at? The unnatural and painful manner of his sitting must also greatly aggravate the evil, insomuch that I have sometimes ventured to liken tailors pg 204 at their boards to so many envious Junos, sitting cross-legged to hinder the birth of their own felicity. The legs transversed thus crosswise, or decussated, was among the ancients the posture of malediction. The Turks, who practice it at this day, are noted to be a melancholy people. Secondly, his diet, to which purpose I find a most remarkable passage in Burton, in his chapter entitled Bad Diet, a Cause of Melancholy. Amongst herbs to be eaten, he says, I find gourds, cucumbers, melons disallowed, but especially cabbage. It causeth troublesome dreams and sends up black vapors to the brain. Galen, Locke, Effect, Lib 3, Cap. 6 of all herbs condemns cabbage. And Isaac, Lib 2, Cap. 1, Animum gravitatum facit, it brings heaviness to the soul. I could not omit so flattering a testimony from an author, who, having no theory of his own to serve, has so unconsciously contributed to the confirmation of mine. It is well known that this last-named vegetable has, from the earliest periods which we can discover, constituted almost the sole food of this extraordinary race of people. Burton, Jr.